An eagle suddenly swooped in and seized his grandson at Henry's 80th birthday party, turning the otherwise enjoyable celebration into a violent event. Henry's life would never be the same after that day. When everyone found out why, chaos broke out. There was a lot of enthusiasm in the little village where he lived. Being the oldest member of the community, Henry was adored and pampered by all for his kindness, wisdom, and generosity. Even to strangers he had just met that day, he was always smiling and had lovely words to say. He was honoring his 80th birthday, and many people attended the celebration. His sprawling complex was unable to hold the crowd of people, and they overflowed into the streets. But since practically everyone in the area was attending the celebration, nobody had any complaints. His only son, Dixon, was hosting the party alongside him. He and his wife, Ella, lived out of town, but they had come to assist him with his party because he was unable to handle it alone. The young couple arrived with their baby, Junior, who was only a few months old but already the center of attention for everyone, as evidenced by the way they cooed at the sight of him. Everyone who laid eyes on Junior felt envious and wished they could have carried him. Better yet, he hardly ever cried, and he behaved wonderfully throughout the celebration as well. To ensure that people could move freely without running into the crib, Dixon and Ella had positioned him in his crib somewhat away from the crowd and backed up against the wall. But it was in a great location where everyone could see him well, meaning that if something happened and the parents weren't paying attention, other visitors would notice right away and take action. It was baby Junior's dream location, but something unexpected was about to happen that none of them could have predicted. There was a loud shriek overhead while they were dancing to the music and having a good time. They could all hear it above the sound of their music since it was so loud. They all looked up at the same time, jaws dropping in disbelief as they saw an eagle dive directly at them. People screamed and jumped to get away. Chairs were flipped over as people tried to escape, bumping into each other, and one person even fell against a table full of food and drinks. But the eagle didn't pursue any of them. Instead, it just darted past the throng and headed straight for Junior's crib. When Ella saw it, the tray she was holding slid from her hands and fell to the ground with a loud crash. Ella cried out in fear. Then, in an attempt to reach the crib ahead of the eagle, she hurried in that direction. But the bird was simply moving too quickly. It descended quickly, and before it even touched the ground, it hooked the talons into the blankets that were tucked around Junior. Ella was there, wailing for her baby when the eagle shot back into the sky with another shriek and a flap of wings. Everyone was in a panic. They had watched an eagle steal a baby right in front of their eyes, and none of them had been able to stop it. It was probably the most unexpected thing to ever happen. Henry was staring at the location where the eagle had taken Junior, just like everyone else. He stood motionless at the door. The idea that something like this could occur astonished him to his core. Phoenix was the bird he recognized so well. He was now forced to face the possibility that, despite his long-held belief that he understood everything there was to know about eagles, he may have been mistaken all along. Henry's thoughts drifted back to the instant he discovered the eagle. It was only a little bird back then. It had been starved and damaged when it had been quite little. It was dangerous for it to be outside by itself while it was so young, and the injury made matters worse. He was aware that he couldn't abandon the bird. The little bird was discovered by him among broken branches and dead leaves while on a trip in the woods. Having compassion for the bird, he chose to give it a second chance at life. This was not an easy task. He brought the bird to the veterinarian where it received care. In order to ensure that the bird was adequately fed, he also purchased everything. The bird eventually regained its vigor and eventually its ability to fly. He let the eagle go into the wild once he was certain it could survive there on its own. But the bird just never went away. It returned time and time again. It always returned to Henry, no matter how long it had soared away. At that moment, he made the decision to give it a name. Phoenix is the name he gave it. They became even closer as the years went by. They were inseparable as Phoenix got larger and larger until he was a fearsome eagle. Phoenix started spending more time with Henry, which proved to be beneficial as it eliminated all of the rats in the home. He was able to stop worrying about food storage in his home as a result. Phoenix would accompany Henry on his walks. The bird would always fly overhead, surveying the area for the elderly man, regardless of whether they were walking through the woods or the streets. At other occasions, all it did was rest on his shoulder as Henry talked to him. Their bond was strengthened by all of these times spent together. Henry never allowed anyone to speak poorly about Phoenix, and it was evident to all how devoted he was to the bird. He was ridiculed and labeled as insane by many for having a friendship with a predatory bird that he had not trained and that was not frequently seen in the world. He was determined not to let anyone take Phoenix from him because he knew that's all they were searching for. He gave them his word that Phoenix was a good bird and would never do anything strange. Phoenix and Henry were so close that Henry showed the bird a picture he had taken of Junior after Dixon and Ella gave birth. He expressed to the eagle his immense pride in Ella for delivering such a joyful child into the world, and his desire to shower her with affection for turning him into a proud grandfather. Henry planned a lavish celebration for his 80th birthday, which was approaching soon after Junior was born. Everyone had been chatting about the event for days prior to it, knowing they would have a blast, and they all wanted to go. It was also easy to understand why everyone was happy about Henry's birthday. After all, they all adored him. Sadly, nothing at all went according to plan. It had been spoiled by Phoenix's decision to act wildly inappropriately at the wrong moment, and worse, by snatching the infant. Now, the large bird soared higher into the sky and disappeared from Henry's complex as they all stared in dread. Fearful for Junior's safety, everyone was fixated on the show, unable to look away. Henry just stood there staring at the bird, shocked. He was unable to comprehend what was happening. He started to question if or not he had misinterpreted Phoenix all along because he was too blinded by his kindness to recognize the threat the bird posed. Henry wanted to cry as he recalled showing Phoenix the photos of Junior. This was his fault. The bird was solely to blame if he hurt his grandson in any manner. He was startled out of his reverie by Ella's scream as he saw her and Dixon in a panic. Dixon and his wife felt they couldn't just stand by and do nothing while Phoenix and Junior were still in the air. They would do whatever it took to save their son. After that, they pursued the eagle on foot as it continued to soar away with their son. Henry did not move from his position. Even with everything clearly visible to him, he was unable to come to terms with Phoenix's ability to harm Junior. Henry and the others had to be missing something. Thus, there had to be a problem somewhere. At last, he moved from his position at the door and approached the cot. There, rummaging among the sheets, he failed to find anything of interest. He checked his surroundings, trying to figure out just what may have set Phoenix off in that manner. Henry heard the loud hiss when he shifted the cot slightly to one side at that moment. The cot, pressed up against the wall, had a snake directly beneath it, making the ideal hiding spot for it. Although its tail was coiled up, its neck stretched to the cot, and its head might have fit through the bars and reached Junior. Henry lurched backward, his pulse pounding loudly in his chest as he understood that Phoenix had not attacked Junior, but had instead saved them all. Henry immediately sounded the alarm and pointed out the snake to everyone. As the guests rushed around attempting to escape, chaos ensued. There were a few moments when everyone moved incoherently in an attempt to get as far away from the snake as they could. But after a while, the snake realized it had been noticed and started to come out into the open, looking menacing. So some of them stopped fleeing and started looking for weapons. The snake slithered slowly toward Henry, its forked tongue darting in and out of its mouth as it closed in on the elderly man, causing Henry to stumble backward. Ella and Dixon, on the other hand, were sprinting quickly and vigorously to keep up with Phoenix. They knew they couldn't hold it up for very long since the bird was simply too far away. They were forced to pursue because they had little time to get back to their car. Phoenix, though, didn't go very far. He just flew a few homes past Henry's and then circled back to gently place Junior on the porch. With another screech, he swerved and shot into the air again, flying past his terrified parents and straight toward the house. Dixon and his spouse observed that the bird was flying at a significantly faster pace than when he had been carrying Junior, and that he was swooping down toward the front of Henry's house, where the elderly man was still retreated from the snake. The others were scared as they saw the snake closing in on the defenseless elderly man, and none of the visitors had managed to find a good weapon. Phoenix pushed at the reptile with such force that he screeched loudly and threw his weight against it, causing both of them to slide onto the floor and knock the chair over. The snake reared backward, trying to bite the bird, hissing in rage, but the eagle slid out of the way and began to peck at the snake with a fierce expression. The fight between the two monsters was fierce. Phoenix suddenly wrapped his hands around the snake's body and hurled it into the air while holding it tight. The snake was unable to gain enough oxygen in the clouds as the eagle soared high into the sky. The bird then released the reptile, allowing it to fall away to the ground from that altitude. Phoenix kept doing this twice before the snake finally released its last breath. After giving the visitors and Henry a quick glance, the eagle snatched the snake and shot off into the sky for the last time, never to be seen again. Ella and Dixon returned with Junior, who was remarkably calm once everything was over. He had sobbed uncontrollably while Phoenix was taking him to the safe haven, but as soon as he saw his parents, he knew everything would be all right and stopped crying. The party should have ended after what happened, but Henry would not have it. It was a story worth celebrating because it had surprised everyone and turned out better when it could have gone worse. Thus, he asked the DJ to continue spinning the tunes, urged the guests to continue having a good time, and expressed gratitude for his grandson's life. Everyone was pleased and inspired by the day's activities. The people who had previously disparaged Phoenix were utterly ashamed, as they had consistently teased Henry over his decision to become friends with a predatory bird. They believed the eagle would have attacked people and that it was too untamed to be a friend. But Phoenix showed them all incorrect. The baby had been saved by the eagle. It was clear that the story would have concluded very differently if Phoenix hadn't existed. But Henry was the happiest of all the people. He grinned with pride the remainder of the evening. He gave thanks for the day he came upon Phoenix in the forest. He gave thanks for the instant he chose to show compassion for the bird and bring him back to life. He was aware that the deed he had committed years prior had proven to be Junior's savior, and he would not readily forget it. It was 3 days later when he finally saw the eagle, long after Ella and Dixon had gone home with Junior and the celebration was done. After perching on his porch, the eagle let out a loud shriek to summon him. When he did, he gave the bird a deep hug and let him cover him with his big wings. At that moment, tears welled up in his eyes as he understood how much Phoenix had prevented him and Junior from losing their grandchild on his birthday. He could not have imagined a life like that for himself, and it would have been something he could never live with. Because he owed Phoenix more than he could ever pay back, he vowed to always do the right thing by the enormous beast of the sky. What a story! What do you think about it? Let us know in the comment section below.